the beginning of our new lives. Again.
The modern gameplay formula that we've all come to know and love and hate from Grand Theft Auto 5 because we played it for the last 10 years is thanks to GTA 4, because this brought GTA into the modern era and really laid the groundwork for what we know today. And in this video, we're gonna see if it still holds up on its own and still a game that's worth playing today. Spoiler, in some ways it may be even better than its successor. GTA 4 was always kind of a little bit of an enigma for me because I played all the older games and I played GTA 5. For the last 10 years, like everybody else has, but I never touched GTA 4. Part of the reasoning for that is because all I was playing around that time was Call of Duty, and I just didn't really jump back into GTA until the future titles. But now that I've played it, it's pretty easy to see why this game was so influential, and in some ways it was actually really surprising, because there's just little details in this game that are, quite frankly, better, in my opinion, than GTA 5.
That's a vintage bush.
But whether it was for setting the standard for a modern blockbuster budget in a video game narrative, or it was for that phone mechanic that every modern open world game was copying around that time period, this game was extremely influential. I'd say it's probably one of the best damn games to come out of the 7th generation console. Speaking of consoles, this is the Xbox 360 version, and it still plays pretty well today. I was actually planning on doing this entire playthrough unpatched on my 360, but I picked up the PC version, the complete edition, while it was on sale for like $6, so that's the gameplay you're gonna be seeing now. It's got some of those modern PC issues, like it's pretty easy to run now on a modern system, but it was pretty horribly optimized at the time, and even today you're still feeling some of the effects from that. You'll probably notice some occasional pop-in or stuttering or just weird things going on with the physics, and that's pretty much due in part to it being the PC version.
Thanks.
Overall, still pretty good, and as a bonus, it's still pretty good on the Steam Deck too.
Nothing like selling some dope to let you know you're alive.
GTA 4 wastes no time getting you right into the story. Fresh off the boat, Niko leaves his Slavic homeland to come and start his new life in America with his cousin. As you can probably guess by the game, the life that he's starting is going to be a life of crime. You start off by doing a few taxi jobs for your cousin Roman, and it doesn't take long at all for you to start getting involved with Russian loan sharks, Italian mob families, and Irish gangsters. It turns out the life that your cousin was promising wasn't all that it was cracked up to be, and his gambling addiction sends you straight into these gang missions.
I should have never read your fucking emails and stayed away. Shut up and fuck off. Hey, Roman. Sorry about this, but your cab got trashed.
There's a big variety in the characters that you meet, and they obviously spend a lot of time on these characters. They're all very entertaining and well voiced, including your character, Niko. When he isn't executing people, he's actually pretty down to earth and relatable.
You want a beer?
No.
Good, because I ain't fucking got none.
Very funny. Maybe if being a drunkard doesn't work out, you can be a comedian.
They all have their own story segments that intertwine at different times in the story.
Rolling. The streets have spoken. Now leave my people alone. Yo, Niko, what are you doing here?
And that carries over to the phone. You get a phone pretty early in the game that saves the contacts of all the characters that you meet. At any point in the story, they'll just randomly call you to hang out, or you can take the initiative to call them and do various activities.
Your master of international.
Niko and Roman, we should go and get drunk together.
Roman, I'm nervous enough about driving a truck full of explosives around the city for Mikhail Faust. He's out of control. Anyway, I'm sorry, but if I get drunk with you and then drive this thing, I'll definitely blow myself up.
You can also take the phone and change the themes of it and buy ringtones whenever you want. You can even put it on Do Not Disturb if you want. That's a fun detail. What I realized later on into the game is that you can actually use the number pad and do things like dial emergency services.
In which area is your medical emergency?
The meat quarter.
We'll send a basically trained paramedic as soon as we can, sir.
This all makes the phone really cool, but going back to the characters, this just adds another layer of personality into them and makes the game more immersive as a whole. Even though this phone feature was something that was carried over into GTA 5 and was copied by countless other open world games at the time, I'd have to say that this is probably one of the best implementations of a phone feature in a game next to the codec in Metal Gear Solid. On the surface, it seems like such a little thing, but it goes so far to add another layer of immersion into the game.
Where do you need assistance?
Downtown.
We'll get a fire truck out to you right away. Hold tight and please be advised that the FDLC takes no responsibility for damage to property.
Similar to the phone, you can go to various internet cafes to check your emails, visit parody web pages, or pick up side content like vehicle acquisition jobs or get dates.
I am a vulnerable guy. who needs to be held by big, strong arms?
You gotta remember that this game was coming out around the time that smartphones were just becoming a thing, like around 2009 or so. I think the iPhone was just coming out. Otherwise, you probably would have seen these two things meshed together, like in GTA 5. All of this will run on a weekly day-night cycle, prompting you to do certain missions at different times, which makes the game feel a little more realistic. More realistic than you just showing up at 4 a.m. and starting a mission or going bowling.
Time flies when you're having fun.
When it comes to that bowling, whether or not you actually do that with the other characters in the game is up to you, but they'll give you a positive or negative rating based on what you do with them, which can actually lead to you getting some special abilities through your phone if you're positive enough with them, which is something I didn't realize until I completed the game because it was something that I kind of ignored. But after all of this introduction stuff, this is where the training wheels finally come off and you're allowed to explore the open city of New York, Liberty City.
Yeah, got fire.
Get you next time, reptilian.
You have various mini games that you can do while you're roaming around the city, like darts, bowling, pool, or you can just watch a stand-up comedy act. These things can be a nice break from the typical driving and shooting that you do, and while none of it's completely mind-blowing, being able to play a full game of pool with another character is actually pretty cool. And it's little things like this that really make this city feel like a real lived-in place. You know, that thing that Cyberpunk was missing that makes it feel so stale after a few hours? Yeah, they were doing this back in 2009.
Niko! That was a smart move.
It is pretty impressive how GTA 4 can still relate to its classic roots when it comes down to working for different gangs or exploring the open city, but just like GTA San Andreas or Vice City before it, GTA 4 continues to push the boundaries of what was possible in an open world game for the time, having things that still weren't surpassed by games like Cyberpunk.
You that fat Russians, bitch? Just try it.
Whether it's the pedestrians dropping the groceries or umbrellas that they were carrying while it was pouring down rain, or it's the taxi drivers dropping you off at any of the random streets in the game that actually have a name attached to them, the attention to detail has always been Rockstar's strong suit, and it's very obvious that they were pushing it in GTA 4. This is due in no small part to the Rage engine that they created, Rockstar's own proprietary software. This introduces a total overhaul to the physics and graphical fidelity of the game that was very obvious if you were making the move from San Andreas to GTA 4. Environments are more detailed and they feel more lifelike to scale. NPCs act more realistically, and most buildings are enterable now without loading, and driving is more fun than ever.
I don't feel so hot. I shouldn't get behind the wheel.
You spend a lot of time driving around, so it was important that they got this part right. Between sliding with the handbrake turns or the suspension travel the distance of a monster truck, you always feel like you're in the middle of an action movie. It's really refreshing to actually play this over the tightened down handling model of GTA 5. You can dump the gas and spin the tires for a good distance in some of the sports cars, which is also fun, and it's a nice detail. All the cars have this real weight to them, and they're just fun as hell to throw around.
Come on, come on!
Almost every car in the game's rear-wheel drive, allowing you to brake traction and slide your car around corners really easily. They're also fun to destroy too, thanks to the new damage model. Pretty much any section of the car that collides with something will dynamically crumble and bend. Even the roofs of the cars aren't safe from this damage, which I don't even think was much of a thing in GTA 5.
This game doesn't have roof damage, but just imagine if this game had roof damage.
You'll even send yourself or the oncoming traffic flying out of the windshield if you hit something too hard. Guess nobody told Niko how to wear a seatbelt. Sometimes the driving physics could feel a little wacky, like flipping the car over 3 times from running over a tire, but I almost still prefer this over the tighter and refined feel of GTA 5's driving model, just because it's so damn fun.
Wrong! I should have never read your fucking emails.
And if you don't want to drive, there'll always be a taxi around the corner. You can just see them slamming through traffic to get you to your destination from the back seat of the car, or you can just use them as a fast travel point, which is what I did a lot of the game in the later half. They've also refined the cover system in the game, which gives it more of a tactical feeling in between these missions. And speaking of missions, there's multiple endings in the game depending on how you play some of these out.
Man, you must forgive me. Let me live. How was your date, bro?
Not so good. I don't think we'll be seeing each other again.
I love this because it puts the decision making in the hands of the player and gives them more control over the outcome of the story, but I can't say the same about the mission design.
What are you talking about?
There's really just 2 types of missions in the game, and I would say maybe more of the less common ones are your just typical takedown missions where you just pull up on the target and take them out as efficiently as you can. But your main story missions are usually heavily scripted, and this is where some of that classic Rockstar mission structure comes into play. You might start start off fighting your way through a building, and then you might have to go on a long chase sequence, and then it'll end in a gunfight, leaving you no real control of the variables in between that mission. But there are some creative missions in the game, like setting up a meeting to buy a car as a way to kidnap the owner.
I am not just letting you take me.
Yes, you are.
I'm getting sick of you, you creep.
That makes two of us.
Later, dick face.
You're fucking annoying.
Pull the fuck over.
Not fucking likely.
You're fucking with the wrong girl, asshole. I am Gracie Ancelotti, and I...
Shut up. Peace, class.
Or helping a crooked cop take out his opposition, which happens to be a brother of a family that you do some missions for.
Fucking Frankie, my brother. He may have a badge, but I tell you for a fact, he's as crooked as the rest of us McCrearys. More so. At least we ain't fucking hypocrites.
Most of these missions revolve around you being a hitman of some sorts, or just a gun for hire, or even just a wheelman. You're just the Slavic dude motivated by the money, and that's fine, but it just kind of starts to get stale when you realize you don't have a lot of freedom in the ways you complete the mission. The game gives you this illusion of decision making within the missions, but it becomes very obvious that a chase sequence is heavily scripted when it's literally speeding up in front of you as you're chasing it. If you're in a chase sequence and it's scripted for you to not be able to stop that chase sequence, you will never get in front of the chase car. The game will constantly speed up to avoid you getting in front of them or doing anything to break the mission. And the game has a lot of these scripted segments in its mission.
Maybe you be careful on the drive over. It's pretty volatile stuff.
Explosive. What the fuck?
There's this bank heist that looks really similar to what we'd see in GTA 5, but unlike its successor, you play a cutscene, walk out of a room, and then walk into the streets making an escape. There's no variety in how you actually tackle this mission or take down different objectives. This is one of those missions where the heavily scripted moments become very obvious.
Now listen, people. We're your friends. Me and me brother here.
Why you telling them we're brothers, you idiot?
So in this mission, you have a 3-star wanted level. At any other point in the game, this would have the cops aggressively abusing you from every corner. But in this mission, you can tell that they're being held back by invisible walls, and they're just specifically laid out to lead you through the level. You're also able to just blow up cars in this level with a few bullets, unlike the rest of the game where cars rarely ever explode without heavy damage. If I had to make a judgment call on one of the things holding this game back, I'd have to say that it's the mission structure, and this is still a thing that's apparent in the successor titles to this game, like GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2. Even though those games are graphically and maybe even mechanically more advanced, they still use that same tired mission structure.
Sit back and enjoy the ride.
Another standout issue is the gunplay, because outside of the new cover system stuff, the same system from the older games is carried over here. You can snap onto enemies for easy lock-on targeting, or you can just free aim by partially holding the trigger down. Enemies will kind of stagger around and react dynamically depending on how they get hit, which is one of those standout features that I still think is even better than its successor, but I can't say the same about the gunplay because it's just not really fun. To simulate recoil and offset some of that accuracy from the lock-on system, it'll just kind of have you randomly miss while you're firing at something. Like, you can blind fire behind cover, which is nice, and obviously you'll miss a lot when you do that, but you're still missing even if you're aiming directly at them. There were also a lot of frustrating moments where I would lock onto the wrong target while I was trying to aim at something, which would result in a lot of cheap deaths. Speaking of that, that leads us to the checkpoint system, or lack thereof. Every time you fail a mission, you have the ability to restart it from your phone, but it doesn't actually keep track of what part of the mission you're in. So if you're doing something like driving for 20 minutes, you'll have to redo that section again every single time you fail the mission.
This place is not much of a fucking holiday.
They do add some extra dialogue if you have to repeat the mission, which does keep it fresh, but only if you're doing this like twice. After that, your companion will just opt to turn on the fucking radio and stop talking, almost like they're self-aware that you're tired of hearing it.
Okay, man, we're listening to the radio on this journey.
It's almost like when you constantly fail a test in Gran Turismo 7 just to have the AI let you know that you're blatantly shit at the game. But it's not all doom and gloom, because the game's still extremely fun. The gunplay is fun enough when it comes down to the AI dynamically reacting to how you're shooting them. The driving is a blast, and it's fun to just smash the cars up. The story is entertaining. All of the characters are witty and funny and well fleshed out. The story has multiple endings, which is awesome. And the open world is just fun to explore. It feels like a real lived-in city, and there's just so much attention to detail packed into this game that I couldn't explain it all in this video, but I do have some notes notable points that I'll just bring up now. If you drop a gun when you die, it'll fire. You can take a train station all around the city. On top of having the typical pay and spray to lose your wanted level, there's a car wash in the game now that'll wash your dirty ass car. There's multiple girls you can date in the game, even though the two of them that you get in the mainline story kind of suck ass. There's constantly traffic jams throughout the city, which I'm sure is a typical New York Liberty City thing. You'll actually step on objects when you walk on top of them instead of just clipping through them. You can just call up people and talk to them about what's going on or reply to emails depending on the part of the story that you're in. There's a fully voiced GPS system in the game, as well as somebody that'll actually try to give you directions as you're driving through a certain part of the city. Characters in the game will notice when you change your clothes.
Top, no nice way to say this. It's not really working. The pants, they're a bit weird. I love the shoes.
You walk to certain parts of the clothing store to get different things. You'll jump off a motorcycle differently depending on the speed that you're going. NPCs will step out of their car or fall out of their car after an accident. Reminders will get set in your cell phone for certain missions. If you're in Chinatown, there will actually be Asian taxi drivers. You can go inside of fast food restaurants or up to hot dog stands to replenish your health, and that's honestly probably not even half of the details in the game.
Did you just move in?
No. Why?
All your stuff is new. Some even still have tags on.
Ah, well, I like things clean.
That's bullshit.
GTA 4 is a lovingly crafted game with an incredible attention to detail when it comes down to real-world landmarks within its city, or its character design and its voice acting. Whether you're just in it for the story, which there's good news for you on that because I spent over 30 hours just playing for the story. It's a long-ass game. Or you're just in it for a good time, not a long time. GTA 4 is still a hell of a game that's worth playing today. If you're still watching the video, you should subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think of this video, and go check out my other stuff because I got some more videos just like this one on my retrospective. If you want to take it a step further and be like my channel members here, which I greatly appreciate, you can become a channel member and see behind the scenes content that I won't post on the main channel, as well as behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make its way into the final cut of the video. Video games might keep progressing, but GTA 4 is a timeless classic.